Three, two, one, and we're live. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Village Made podcast. And today we have a special episode. Today we're also in collaboration, VMP, Village Made podcast, in collaboration with Austin Childs. And man, we just got a lot of feedback about the business that Austin has created. And because of the feedback that we've been getting, we wanted to run it back, put on more content, and create more content for you guys. And Austin is here again. And again, thank you for wanting to do this and, giving of your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Because of the feedback that we got from the podcast, due to the podcast, we are excited, and we also find value in in collaboration with Austin, in the things that we're gonna, just the content that we're gonna be providing for you guys. And so at this time, we'll go ahead and ask Austin, what kind of feedback did you get? And then we'll talk about the feedback that we got, because just the overwhelming feedback that we've been getting.
Nice. That's good to hear. So yeah, well, first, thank you for everybody who gave feedback. It was really nice seeing kind of that, people watched it. First of all, it always feels good. But then actually that people took the time out of their day. It meant a lot to me and my wife. And to you guys, obviously, yeah, your guys' podcast. Sure. And so biggest thing I got was, I think people wanted me to get more into detail. I think they felt like I left them hanging a lot when it came to, I'd give them a little bit of, like the investor round, and then hiring people. I didn't even get into how I hired people. So I got those kind of questions like, what did you do? How did you do it? Right. So they kind of know what I did, but now they want to know how I did it, and a little bit about like the mindset, because a lot of couples have contacted me and said, hey, me and my husband, or me and my wife, we've been wanting to start a business, but we've never took that leap. And so that, I think, a little bit of, and it's people I grew up with, right? People that I grew up with and kind of lost contact with. And so for them to see me, and then high school dropout, right? I think everybody knows that part. Like, I was a high school dropout. I was all about partying in high school. And then to see me have a little bit of success, I think, it's almost like if he can do it, I can do it. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think maybe sparked a little bit, because it's true, anybody can do it. But yeah, that's kind of the feedback I got.
That's awesome. I feel like, especially nowadays, a lot of people see the value in starting their own businesses, right?
Yeah.
And just like how you talked about on the podcast, that 9 to 5 really wasn't for you. And so I feel like a lot of these people, or maybe the couples that came to you, they see the value in starting their own businesses and not working really a 9 to 5, being their own bosses. And so I'm kind of, I agree with you. Let's go ahead and start with talking about the mindset, because it doesn't matter what you start, but if you don't have the right mindset, sometimes you won't be able to make it through or see the whole project through.
Yeah.
And then you probably won't find success. But in starting with the mindset, how did you know, or when did you know that you needed a certain mindset to be able to go into business?
Yeah, so I think I went into it kind of blind, right? Like, that failure was really a failure for me, because I didn't have the right mindset. So I guess I'll jump forward to after the failure, once I adopted the right mindset. So the right mindset for me was, I needed to understand the playing field, right? And I'll kind of get into that. Okay. And so the playing field because it's a big game. Business is just a big game. And the more you understand the playing field, the more the actual players become a non-factor, right? Because you kind of know how to maneuver, and you kind of know how to do your thing. Right. And so learning the playing field was big. And then also with the knowing the difference between an asset and a liability. I had a ton of assets, or a ton of liabilities and no assets. And so knowing the difference between that it's just it almost eases your mind. And then I think the balance, right? Because you give up so I'll start here, a 40 hour a week of work, okay? Very secure, because you know exactly how much you make. Right. Very easy to budget, but you have to go to work, right? Entrepreneurship, you don't have to do anything, but if you don't put in, like I said, failure, I did like 2 hours of work, and then I'm like, oh, break time. I go, walk out of my office because I had a home office. So I walked out of my office and then went to my wife and said, where are we going to eat? 3 hours later, fast forward, 3 hours later, I come back, take a nap. Fast forward 2 hours later, it's about 6 o'clock at night. And I'm debating if I want to watch Netflix with my wife or if I want to watch YouTube or if I want to work. And obviously I chose the easy route, right? And so, and then again, Atomic Habits, right? It says if you want to be successful, make success easy. Okay. And so I had to adapt that mindset. So in the beginning, that's kind of where I was. I was very nonchalant about things. But then once I passed the failure, I adapted into, okay, Sunday, I'm an owner and I'm going to work on my business, right? So I'm going to work, and it's not a business yet. It's an idea, right? I'm going to work on my idea and I'm still working, right? So I'm still working a 9 to 5. So I'm going to work on my idea that could possibly be a side hustle, turn into business. Okay. And then from there, so Sunday I was the owner and I planned out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday was my follow-up day. So once I did that, right, I was working 8 hours at work, come home, hang out with the family a little bit, and then I was working 9 to 10 hours into the night, literally sleeping 2 hours and running off 2 hours of fuel. Okay. And so I didn't give up 8 hours for freedom, but I think that's what everybody thinks, because when everybody I want to own my own business, the first thing they think about is I want free time, I want money, and I want to do whatever I want. And if I go on vacation, I don't want to ask anybody if I can go. Right. Right. And that's not it takes forever to get there. And so it's a lie. All these people that say that, oh, you can get into business and you could do this, this, and this, and this. It takes time. Right. It takes hard work. Again, back to God, family, business, right? Because every time it's counter, like if I tell my wife, like, oh, I'm going to be late tonight from the office because I'm working, it's going to, so you have to find balance too, right? Because the first time, wife says, oh, cool. Second time, cool, no worries. Going on to the 20th time, eventually it's going to catch up. It's going to catch up. And all of a sudden now you're putting so much work into, you put work into something, it brings neglect to the other thing. Right. And so, yeah, that's kind of the mindset you have to have. And so getting deeper into the playing field. So the playing field is understanding that your neighbor's in no better position to start a business than you are, right? That meaning, let's say, I'm going to use personal examples. So when I first started, I was, what was I? When I first started getting intrigued by business about 2-3 years ago, right? And I think I said that. So, but after the failure, I had to look at the playing field. And so I had a neighbor, not a neighbor like next door, but I had a friend who was way better off than me. Right. Okay. They had the wife, they made about $140,000 combined. They had 2 nice cars. They had a boat. They had a house, right? And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, the way I'm living compared to the way they're living, right? I'm working call center manager hour, so I'm getting like 18 an hour, not a lot of money. And so I'm thinking like, man, they have such a better head start. But in reality, they don't, because even let's say they had, the biggest difference was, right, is they had a ton of liabilities, okay? And so they had a house, they had a boat, they had 2 cars, and they also were looking into getting into an investment property, okay? Now, the investment property was the only asset they had. Besides those 2 going to work, they had nothing, okay? Wow. And so they had about, and me and him were really close, so they had about $40,000 in the bank. I had about maybe, I like fluctuated from 0 to 4,000, at the most. And so that's kind of the lifestyle I was living. And so, and that's in savings, right? And so, but I thought to myself, I'm like, no, but if something big were to happen to them, like let's say their roof and 2 cars broke down and there was a funeral, 30,000's gone, right? Quick. And now we're even, right? Besides that they have a nicer car, we're even. And so understanding that, because a lot of people that I've talked to, a lot of people that I talk to still to this day, they think that they're just not in the right position to start. Right? So understanding that no matter what position you're in, you can always get into business.
Right.
Okay, because there are businesses out there that they require zero money and they require a lot of time, and then there's businesses that require a lot of money, and then businesses that require a little bit of both, right? And so it's up to you. It was up to me to find and explore ways to make money. Mm-hmm. And so with that, I mean, people wanted me to get into a little bit more detail, right? So for me to understand that during my failure, towards the end of it, probably the 11th month of it, I would ask CEOs that I knew that I've worked for in the past if I could shadow them. And I got turned down by a lot. And the two that said yes, you can shadow me, I was like their slave. Like I was like their anything they needed, I made myself available. Hey, that's why you have me today. Right. And was it fun? No. Was it, did it affect my man? Like, did I feel like my man card was taken? Yeah. But now I'm walking out of the day with no money, but I'm walking out with, I just served a millionaire, right? And I have the millionaire number in my phone. And if I can do this tomorrow, because they let me do 2 days at a time. And so I knew if I could serve them tomorrow, I could walk out of there being like, I could be a huge asset to this person. So the next day, it wasn't physical things. I went after mental things. So then when I'd hear conversations, I knew the answer, right? Because all this studying that I've been doing for a year, I knew the answers to what they're saying. And so I'd put my 2 cents in. And I'd say, in that call you had, did they say this, meaning this? And they're like, oh, you understand? I'm like, what do you think? Anyways, little conversations like that. I became valuable to them. And so 2 of them were actually the investors. 2 of the investors that came in on one of the rounds of investment that we took, because I knew they had money, and I knew that they saw me as somebody that if you give me an opportunity, I'm not going to mess it up. Right. I might mess it up, but I'm not going to mess it up by not trying, right? And so, they became 2 of my investors on top of my lawyer's friends. And so that's kind of the mindset you have to adapt, though. And so I guess going into detail in it, now the simple answer is mindset, knowing that you are giving up a $40-hour-a-week job that's very secure. You're giving that up for the unexpected, unpredictable. Yep. Maybe I'll make money, maybe I won't. And probably I would say if you're not putting at least 50 to 60 hours a week into your business, then it's not going to go anywhere, right? Because, so it's like you're giving up less work to do more work, but it's the freedom, right? It's the illusion that we're chasing that there might be financial free. Because I think, everybody's led the path of if you work a good career, you'll have retirement, the government will take care. I mean, I roll my eyes at it because I disagree with it so much. But the illusion that if I work for myself, I'll never miss another kid's game. I'll never have to ask anybody if I can take a week vacation. And I'll never have to ask, can I take a laptop with me so I can work on, you never have to ask those questions, right? So that's the instant illusion that we have. I want that. So the instant, and I say illusion because it is illusion for a lot of people, because a lot of people fail. And, if you're climbing a mountain, you'll go up and you'll get quarter of the way and you'll go back to the beginning and you'll have to repack and reassess yourself and then go up, and you might get farther every time. And who knows, depending on your personality, you might give up or you might keep going. But the chances of a business actually succeeding is very small. And so I consider myself very blessed to have good partners with a lot of skin in the game that have helped me along the way. And so, but that mindset though, it's an equal playing field. It's out for the taking. There are ways to make money. If anybody ever tells me how do I make money? Really? It's 2020. I could, anything can make you money. Anything you really put your mind to. I mean, I saw I think it's like a series on YouTube, but there's a company that sells air from mountains in a water bottle, and they sell their biggest customer is the Asian, China, where the pollution's so bad. They'll come home and they'll suck up the air. It's nuts. Air. Crazy. So what I'm saying is having the right mindset, knowing that you're going to have to research, find what's out there, what you're good at. I think we covered it last episode. Take something you're already doing for free and see if you can make money from it. Right. Yeah.
Man, I think for me, just going back on what you were saying, just looking at the big picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Although you're going and following or shadowing the CEO and not making any money, but at the end of the day, you got to remember, that what you're setting yourself up for is bigger picture and not so for the instant gratification like you're talking about. And then also with the assets and, being an asset for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that way, so when the CEO sees you or when somebody sees you, they know that they can trust you, that
Yeah.
you work for them.
And assets, like I said, assets and liabilities, right? So you take on both in life.
Right.
So a liability, I'm sure everybody knows, but for those who don't, liability is something that you purchase with money and that doesn't make you any money after that. Okay, so a house, car, things like that, boats. And then when it comes to an asset is something that you can purchase and then you can make money off of it. Okay, so cool story about, man, this was probably the most come to Jesus moment I had with assets. We were on our way to Vegas to purchase me and my wife. We were on our way to Vegas. We were in Mesquite. We were on the Casablanca exit, so the furthest south exit you can go in Mesquite. We were there. We just got some snacks and we filled up gas. And before that, so skip or rewind a month, I put money into some stocks, foreign exchange stocks. So trading, right? I met a guy, his name's Isaac, and he was really good at it. He said he was. So I did my research. I did my due diligence and did a ton of research on it. And so I put, I put $2,000 into it. And it was I felt like I gave it away, and I didn't understand. Everybody was telling me, everybody that was successful was telling me, like, no, it's going to pay off. I saw it as I just gave $2,000 away, right? And so with that, what I did was so then go back to the month later. We were in Mesquite, and we just spent money. And I'm going to be super transparent because I think people need to hear, like, this is like I said, assets are like my best friend now, and because of this moment. So we're in Mesquite, we just spent money. Where was I? Yeah. And so we're going down to buy computer equipment for the software team. Okay. And so we were going down to the company called Fry's down there in Vegas. They don't have one up here. I was just seeing if I could bargain. And so I had a credit card that I was using, my company credit card, and it had about $19,000 on it. But I didn't want to spend anything personal on it. I just wanted it to be company stuff. And then in our bank, I think me and my wife together, we had maybe $3,000, maybe, with cash and credit card. And that was our limit. So we had definitely enough to go down for 4 days and get a cheap hotel. And then out of nowhere, I had a notification from my bank come in, and it said that there's been a deposit. And then so I looked at it, and it had $10,600 more than what it had before. And I was like, the bank made a mistake, right? They're going to say that it's mine, and then they're going to say, sorry, wrong person. And then they're going to lock up your account while you're on vacation. So I just looked at my company credit card like, I'm about to use you for everything this week. And then I get a text from Isaac. And he's like, hey, your first payout came, and I just deposited it into your account. And he said, you should see it coming through pretty quick. And the feeling, I was like, wow, I gotta, times 4, times 5. I times my initial investment by 5 in a month by doing nothing, by handing it off to a guy that said he knew what he was doing. I guess he didn't know it. Yeah, we're still friends, and we still make a lot of money together with that, but that was probably So the trip all of a sudden turned into cancel the room. We're going to go get a room here, and we're going to get a suite, and we're going to order room service, and we're going to order And that was the first vacation that I've ever taken. Besides the equipment, I ended up not buying anything. I ended up changing my mind and said I'm going to go through apple.com. And so I bought a couple computers, and I kept returning them because I didn't like them. And so, yeah, it was actually, we spent, and we came back with more money than we left with. from Orem.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, the on the map from Orem going there and then coming back to Orem. We came back to Orem with more money than we left
Right.
with. I mean, we didn't gamble either. I think I did slots, but I lost. So yeah. And
That's
so
crazy.
that's the asset. And I never I always thought of like it's more of a gamble, right? Like I'd rather buy something that makes me happy now, today. I'd rather buy the cool thing than see my money disappear into an asset and not know. But that's now I look at it like, no, if I put a little bit of research, like think of how much you can accomplish in one day. If you were to just take one day of your life and say, I'm going to take 8 hours, 4 in the morning, 4 at night, and say, I am going to study as much as I can, 2 sessions on one topic. Like you can literally walk out, it depends how good you are at studying, but you can literally walk out with such a take back from that, right? Like you can come, like you're able to answer questions that like, it just, you know, and if it's good, now if you take those 4 hours, if you take the first 4 hours and you're just dying, like you don't like it, it wouldn't be something I throw my money into, right?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, that's a difference. So assets and liabilities. And so like you don't need anything. Now $2,000 is what I put in. You could put $10 into the foreign exchange and build up. Now obviously the less money you put in, the more time you're going to need to put into it. But I mean, who doesn't have time for their future?
Yeah.
Like it drives me nuts if people were to be like, I don't have time for, I'd rather hang out with my family. I'm like, I mean, I get it. Hang out. I love hanging out with my family. I'd rather hang out with money coming in when I'm sleeping or when I'm hanging out with my kids. So, yeah.
That reminds me of, I remember on the podcast you had mentioned, you know, changing the mindset from like a consumer, you know, mindset into doubling your money, you know. And so instead of like when you get $5, you're spending $5, changing that mindset when you get $5 to turning it into 10, you know. And so that's what that reminds me of, you know. And all that information that we have on the internet now, you know, we use that couple hours a day or a couple hours, you know, to study, you know, and to maybe perfect, you know, whatever you're trying to get into.
Right. And all it's going to lead you is to know how money is just a tool. Right. That's all it is. When I see money come in, I think, where is it going now? Right. And then it just depends on when you want to cash out. And we were talking about it after the podcast. And, you know, I think it would be cool to share it because we're all about sharing, right? Like this is what this podcast is for. The part 2 is just, go ahead.
And I'd like to mention also, you know, after the podcast, we had so many stories because we're like, man, I should have said that. This is the opportunity for us to say, man, I should have said that. Or, you know, just watching the podcast back and be like, oh, I should have, you know, covered this or I should have done this. And so I feel like this is a great opportunity for us to cover those things that, you know, just like you're talking about after the podcast, we're like, that's what we shared. But yeah, this is the opportunity for us to. Give the
I remember.
Inside.
Yeah, I remember we were like, man, we should have kept the cameras rolling because that's when I think we were a little bit more. I was nervous,
right.
And so with since when we were talking, I was telling you about the system I want to do for my kids,
right.
And that's, man, I challenge everybody, and you don't have to copy me, but so obviously I create software systems, so I wanted to create a system that we could do with my kids. And so what I came up with, right now my son's 6, so he's in the employee phase, right? He's my employee. He works for me. He gets paid by me, and he has to budget his money. And well, not really. He doesn't really have to budget his money. He takes out more loans, I guess, than he does anything. And so, but what I want to get him into is I want to get to the point where, and it's best if you do this separate from your wife, right? So do it separate. So your wife knows about it, but she's not in on it yet. And so you give your kid, daughter, son, $5, and you say, bring me back 10. I want you to double it. And he's going to be like, how? And don't tell him anything, right? Because what he's going to do is he's going to get declined by you. You're going to be like, no, just go figure it out, right? Without stealing, be careful. Yeah, without stealing, go get me $10. And he's going to first they're going to start off, and this is just my I haven't seen it happen yet. And so, but I want my son to go to my mom or his mom. And I want him to be, Mom, I got to do something like, and first it's going to be like, well, here, I'll just give you $10, right? I'll trade you this. Like, it's first it's going to be, I'll trade you a 5 for a 10, right? And then eventually that's going to run out because my son's going to come back to me. He's going to show me $10. I'm going to take it from him, but thanks. And the next day, I'm going to let him think about it. The next day, I'm going to give him $5, might go double it again. And he's going to go back to his mom. And eventually his mom's going to be, okay, I'm not trading 10s for 5s. Okay, you got to, and then so hopefully your son's like, okay, what can I do? Right? So then he starts creating, so instead of me being the boss and giving him chores to do, I want him to start creating chores. So he's going to take chores that I've given him. Can I do this? And anyways, but building up to the end, right? He's hopefully, I want my son to understand that, oh, he's only going to take 10. So every time he gives me 5, if I can figure out how to turn it into 20, I take 10, I give my dad 10. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At a young age, I don't want to ever tell him what I'm doing. I just want to do it. And I want him to figure out, even if it takes till he's almost about to graduate, the day it clicks in his head and he has that instant motion when he gets money, first thing he tries to do is double it before he spends it, right? How, as a parent, right, we do everything for our kids. How nice would it be to have, I have 3 boys. How nice would it be for me to have 3 boys that I could give any amount of money as adults and know that they're going to take it and go double it? Or at least, even if they don't, right? Because there's always losses in life. But at least that's what they're going to try to do before they take my money and spend it, right? And so I eventually want my kids to say, my dad's an idiot. He keeps giving me $5 and I'm turning into 50 and I only give him back 10 and he's happy with it, right? So I want him to think like, oh, my dad's this big dummy that doesn't know what I'm doing, you know? And then eventually he's going to be, oh, like my dad's not so dumb after all. So, but that's the mindset we have to have too, is so with, as soon as I understood that, and it sucks that it was 28 years old, I figured that out after the business kind of, like, because I technically started the business before I started doing the asset part, right? Because I was one of the ones who thought that I had to have money to make money. And now that I go back, I'm like, oh, I'd almost rather, so if you could tell me, do you want to start off with $30,000 in your bank account in savings and a ton of liabilities and not a lot of assets or 0 assets? Or do you want to start off dead broke with just a basic job? And right, I would almost take the basic job because that's where I came from. Right. But I feel like, and so, but the confidence in that, I wouldn't take, like, I used to look at people like my neighbor that I use for an example, the one with the boat, the one with the cars. I used to look at him and be like, man, that's goals. And now I look at him like, I wouldn't wish that on my worst nightmare or my worst enemy. Right. I wouldn't wish that life on him because it's like, man, 3 things really big happen in their life and all that work goes to nothing, right? All their savings, gone, right? All their all their liabilities, the cool ones, they got to sell it. Like, not me. Like, no, it's not the life for me. So, yeah, that's kind of going into that with the liabilities and assets and everything.
And I'm glad that you touched on that because that's the mindset that we need to change as a people. You know, we covered that, you know, or you covered it at least a little bit on the podcast.
Comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to change that mindset, and so that's good that you're creating it with your kids, you know, to get them out of their comfort zone, or you know, to train them up. That mindset needs to change. I think that's kind of cool.
Right, and it's kind of like, you know, you don't want your kids to be those nervy kids that just ask for, you know, you don't want them to. But then I look at the bigger picture. I'm like, no, I do, because closed mouths don't get fed, and so if my 12-year-old is that nervy 12-year-old that all my, you know, all their aunties and uncles are like, oh, don't babysit him. Like, don't, like, because he's gonna ask those nervy questions. Like, at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, if he can turn it into success when the auntie or uncle that used to be annoyed with him, like, you know, the annoying kid always turns out success. Yeah. So doesn't even bother me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So once you started your business, what was the mindset going in? Yeah. That you took on, or that you, I guess, had to adopt and had to, you know, had to run with to start your business?
Yeah. So it goes with, so great question. So it goes with the juggling I brought up in the last podcast, right? So all of a sudden you're used to juggling 3 balls in your life, right? Family, the normal. And then now you're wearing the hat of an owner, but you're also working for yourself, right? And it really depends. So let me get into this. It really depends what kind. So there's workers in life. There's there's wanters, right? There's people that always want what other people have.
Right.
We all know those people. And then there's workers, people that go out, put in a hard day's work and get what they want. And then there's self-employed, right? So that's the next step after working, is usually self-employed. And then you have the owners, which they depend on all the bottom 3 people to feed them, right? And they don't do a lot of work. Well, they do, but they work on a business. Self-employeds, they work in the business. And so, and it's cool because I got a lot of feedback from that. A lot of people were asking like, hey, we're thinking about starting something. And so my advice would be, it depends what you're doing, right? So if you're starting self-employed, which I've been before, realize that it's a lot of time, right? You're giving up a $40, I always say $40. You're giving up a 40-hour work week for possibly an 80-hour work week with no guidance, right? You are the guidance. And so it's kind of like, so self-employed, definitely that's going to be where you learn a lot. And so for me, in my business, I was fortunate enough to step into the owner, right? So how it worked is on my iPad, my Apple Pen, I drew the software, what I wanted it to look like. I just drew it and I just colored it in, and thank goodness for like all the apps that helped me out because my art is very bad. But I drew it to a point where I could go to a designer, and he could design what it should look like software-wise. From there, I took what the software design looked like, and then I went and we pitched it to people. So first we pitched it to companies, and so we went to local companies in the Utah County and Salt Lake area. We went to local companies with software call centers, and we pitched the prototype, right? The imaginary illusion. Right. If we had this, would you want it, right? And it was pretty cool how we sold them, because I would go sit down with like the CEO. Well, a lot of times it was a COO, because they were in charge of operations, and I would tell them like, hey, I just want your advice. I don't think this software is for you, but I just want your advice on, do you know anybody? I know you know people. And so, just kind of blowing them up. And then I'd say, okay, this is the software. And I knew it was for them. And they come and they look at it. I'm like, no, I think we could use. I'm like, no, listen, man, it's not for you. And I literally make them do it 3 times. I'd make them tell me they want it 3 times. And then finally, okay, if you really want it that bad, all I need you to do is sign this piece of paper. It's called a LOI. And it's a letter of intent, okay? So it's a letter of intent, meaning if what I presented to you, and so business owners, people who are going to business, keep letters of intent are going to get you money, okay? So letters of intent, meaning, hey, if I had a product that just did what I said, would you pay X amount of dollars for it? Would you buy it, right? If I charged X amount of dollars, would you buy it? And some of them were like, well, if it did that and then these 2 things. So then you slide the piece of paper back, you write those 2 things, you slide it back to them, and you say, okay, sign it, right? Here's a pen, sign here, press hard, And so, yeah, that's kind of where, right? As soon as I got letters of intent, and again, this is me, owner, so this is my work as an owner, okay? As soon as I got the letters of intent, I had to get 2 of them. And then we went to investors, which happened to be my lawyers, family, and friends. And we were able to start bringing in money, right? And like I said, once I don't know what I can legally say. I don't know. I'll use ballpark numbers, okay? Yeah. So I proved to them on paper that I could make about $2 million a year, okay? And so in return, they said, well, in 10 years, he'll make $10 million. So I'm going to make him an offer. I'm going to invest $10 million and see if he can overexceed and make 20, right? So next thing you know, we were having millions of dollars thrown at us. Now, this wasn't money in my pocket, but it was money that I had access to. And so it was nice. It was flattering, but it was also overwhelming. And I didn't know what to do with it. Luckily, that's why I said, luckily my partner knew exactly what to do with it because he had skin in the game. He was the 40 years old, right, that we discussed. And so he had skin in the game. So he knew exactly what to do with it. And so luckily I had him. And so with that, we were able to pay off investors back pretty quick with money. Either we didn't spend and we just gave it back. But now we're at a point where we are just operating on our own money. No investors are involved. It was pretty cool along the way. I had a couple people, and I'm sharing this like this is ownership problems, right? And so it's fun work, but I had a couple people, like the decisions, you still have problems, right, at every level. And so you have people that come to you and say, I'm going to use, well, no, I can use real numbers with this, right? So then this guy came to me and said, well, I'll give you 12 million just to buy it out right now. Just give me the business. Just give me your 51%. Let me take it and I'll turn it into more, right? And so that's like, okay, I have millions of dollars in a bank account that I have no personal access to. But this guy just said, right, how do you bring that home to your wife, right? This guy, you come home and you say, babe, do you want 12 million or do you want me to keep working for free pretty much? And yeah, so those are the kind of, and luckily I chose not to go with it. Right. And it was God had a hand in that because at first I said, yeah, let's sell it. At first I said yes.
Up front, you know.
And then he tried to lower, and he tried to lower again. And so luckily, and then I finally like, no, like now you're trying to play me. So, but yeah, initially I gave in, and thank God that he kept trying to lower, and I ended up not selling because now it wouldn't look like a very good deal.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's kind of like the minds, right? The mindset that you need to have in going into the business is that and we talked about it after the podcast, right? So if you were to ask me, what are you doing? Like, what do you do for work? I have no idea. I do software, but I have no idea what I'm doing. All I know is the only direction I'm going is forward. If I fall forward, right? Because if you fall forward, you can see what's ahead of you. If you fall backwards, you don't know what's behind you. So I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that every day I had to show up. I had to work smart. I had to work hard. And The Rock says it, right? Be the hardest worker in the room. It's so, you don't even have to. Now, I wasn't the hardest worker in the room because obviously there's coders that are sitting at a computer for 12 hours just coding away. I'm not the hardest work, but I had to make sure that I was the smartest worker in the room. Even though every conversation I'm so lost. I don't know what I don't know what algorithm they're deciding today. I don't know. But I do know after they're done, I have to take over the room. I have to grab the attention back and direct the work because that's what the owners do, right? So yeah, that's kind of the mindset you have to have going in. And but it's not like there's no like think this way and you'll have success. It's have an open mind and work hard and work smart, and you'll have the luck. And then say a lot of prayers, and you might get there. So really, mindset. It's more of an understanding that it's unpredictable. Right. Yeah.
So, when you first started your business, did you go in with the same mindset that you had at the end of it, or along the way did you pick up different tools or different, because of experience, different things? And so by the end of it, your mindset was different, you think, or did you go into at the end of it, was it the same mindset as you when you started? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So
because you just grew along, with more experience.
My mindset, obviously my mind has grown, but I still have the same mindset when it comes to, I know I need to be open-minded, right? Okay. So I still have the same mindset as this job is unpredictable. There's nobody that I can go to for help besides the bank, I guess. But realizing that, it's unpredictable and all the problems are going to fall and rise with me. All the success is going to fall and rise with me as the majority owner. And also, this is not discrediting anybody in my company, but my partner, he is a lawyer. And so he handles all the legalities. But when it comes to sitting in a room and brainstorming, if you give him the most boring 50 pages of stuff to read, he'll sit and he'll read it within an hour, right? He'll skim it. If you give him a blank whiteboard and say, come up with an idea, like you hear snoring, like yeah, maybe it's his age, but he will often, it's not his style, right? He doesn't like making something from nothing. He likes making sense of something. And so, yeah, my mindset's definitely changed. My habits have changed when it comes to, I know when I get something, so I know for my business as an owner, and I didn't know this in the beginning, I know that I have to focus on 3 things that's going to make our company money today, and then 3 things that are going to make our company next month or next year, right? And that's the only 3 things. I only worry about 6 things a day, right? So me as an owner, I trust that all the legalities are handled by my partner. I trust that all the software and code is being written and carried out correctly by our lead developer, our head developer, and his employees. And then I trusted the accounting, that money's in the bank account with our finance advisor. And then my job, I'm the innovator, right? So I make sure that there's money coming in today, and then I'm focused on making sure that it keeps coming in. And then I'm focused on, do my employees that I'm employing, do they have money in a year from now? Do they have to go look for a job? Because I think that's what's important for me as an owner, right? And so mindset, no. Habits, yeah. Right. My daily schedule, I usually, start off my day with super simple. I start off my day a lot of times, at least 4 times a week, I go golfing. And that's usually in the morning before it gets hot. And then I come home, and the days I don't go golfing, those are the days I go to the gym. So I hit the gym. And then I usually head to work from 10-ish, 11-ish to 4-ish, 5-ish, right? And then I head to work, and then the rest of the day is for family. And then maybe around 10 o'clock, when the kids start calming down and getting ready for bed, I'll take a couple phone calls. And I'm texting throughout the day. But I have a set schedule, so that's changed. I'm not taking hours and hours out of my day. And then I have habits that I know when certain situations happen, so good or bad. I have a list of to-do things. So I have, this is what's worked in the past, this is what I haven't tried, and this is what hasn't worked. And so anytime a new problem comes, I go through the process of elimination and I figure it out and then hand it down. So I delegate it down. And then the mindset really hasn't. It's definitely grown. Okay. That's the only thing I can say. The mindset has grown, but it's not changed. Right? That's awesome. Why, like when your friends are like, man, you changed, man. Yeah, just be like, nah, I've grown. Yeah. Yeah. So
that's cool. Man, and speaking of Atomic Habits, do you want to get into that?
Yes.
Speaking of,
yeah, it's my favorite book, right? And so Atomic Habits, it gets into, man, so I don't have it with me. It's in my truck, but I want to do a giveaway. So I bought a book, and I want somebody, I don't care if you choose, I choose, somebody that, comments and interacts with our posts, I want them to get the book. And so maybe we'll do like a drawing, or maybe we'll do like a contest. I don't know. However you want to do it, but it's yours to keep.
Stay tuned on our social media. We'll go ahead and announce it on social media how to do this. I mean, he's announcing it right now, but to get into the contest, or to get into, to be able to be a winner of the book, stay tuned on Village Made Podcast social medias.
Yeah. And this book will change your life. Like, and it doesn't say it in the book, but getting into the book, honestly, like, my biggest advice is when you read it, make sure you act upon it right away. Okay? So you're going to read it, and it's like that saying, like, you are not what you think you are what you do. Right. Okay? So you could think you're like the best singer, or the,
genius.
or a genius. You could think it all day. Right. But until you actually start doing things that prove it, and It's funny because like it's like the beginning of entrepreneurship. I think everybody just wants to be seen. And so everybody they come into contact with, they have to tell, oh, this is what I do for work, right? Because they want the recognition. Once you get past that point and you start working in silence, now you don't have to work in silence, but once you start understanding that, okay, it's not what I say I am, it's not what I think I am, it's actually what I do, that's when business gets real fun, okay? Because that's when you start seeing real results, and that's when you stop caring of, like, when you post something, you go back and look at the views, like something that I think the only time I've done it is with this podcast, honestly. Like when I watched it the first night, I obviously saw, I think there was like 7 views the first night, and then I think the second night I watched it, me and my wife watched like little clips because I was just trying to critique myself. And so yeah, the second time I watched it, it's like, oh, I got 100 views, like, but if it's not making me money today, it might make me money in the future, right? But the views today to me don't matter because as an owner, I know what I have to be focused on. And so yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. Well, I guess for me, it's just awesome that we got to collaborate, you come back.
Yeah.
And then we get to discuss a little more in detail, not only what you talked on the podcast, but how you went into detail about the mindset.
Yeah.
And so I hope you guys, man, learn just as much as I did, listening to Austin talk about not only the mindset, but also the practicality and how to apply it. And so I think that's going to be amazing, not only for me and you, but also for me, because you've already done it, but for the listeners, for the people who also, are going to be consuming this content.
And I looked at a lot of the listeners, so I added a lot of people that like the video on Instagram. I just added them because network is huge, right? Yeah. And so I don't even care if it seems weird. I'm just going to add them, Yeah. But yeah, I think if you can just have the right mindset and build confidence to make that leap of faith, I think that's the first thing you have to do. From there, don't go get a business coach. Don't go get do it on your own. Make sure you're being smart, obviously. Find people. You can find the information on YouTube. You can find the information on Google. But your unique approach, you as a person, your unique approach is what's going to make your business unique to the world. And right now, the world needs, it's almost like how many McDonald's can there be, Eventually, you're going to have to try. So how many days in a row can I eat McDonald's, even though it's super convenient, right? The day somebody, and it's crazy because the world has so many people, right? The day somebody craves something unique, be there, right? It's easier to be there. Don't be it's almost like that, like a doctor, right? You never hear a doctor ever complain about being a doctor. He might complain, but the work to get to being a doctor, you never hear him be, I wish I wasn't a doctor. I wish I never started, right? Nobody ever says that. And so if I can just say anything, take away anything from this, get in the right mindset to get started, and don't say I'm going to start Monday. It's start today and just start making your rough draft business plan, even if it's just writing it out. And as soon as you do a mental item, what you think of a plan, that's a mental item, then it has to be followed by a physical action, right? So here's my plan. Now what am I going to do, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, you heard the man. Get started on these crazy ideas. Start today. These crazy ideas have changed the world. Some of the things that we use nowadays, was once crazy ideas. And so, just like Austin said, go ahead and start your ideas today. And thanks again for tuning in to the first part of this series. We're going to continue this series, and so just depending on your feedback, and we want to continue this series. But once we get this series going, this is just part 1. So tune in again for part 2 of this series, and we'll see you next time.